it's not commensurate with the goal. The means and the ends don't go together. So the carbon trading scheme is obviously only the first step in a much larger plan that they have, if they actually mean to achieve those goals. Now, I actually believe they really don't expect to achieve those goals. There's nothing easier than promising that 40 years from now something will happen. All right, which is precisely what they're doing. But there are shorter-term goals that they have, and let me just lay out. They expect by 2020 they'll have reduced carbon dioxide emissions by 20%. So of course that leaves another 60% to go out of the current amount. But just in 10 years they expect it to reduce carbon dioxide by 20%. It's going to be wildly costly to do that. So in any case, either they're going to have to put on far more draconian measures in order to achieve these goals, or the goals are illusory. So the takeaway from this is cap and trade, whatever they say, is simply not a viable mechanism to achieve the goals that they have outlined. It's impossible to get here from there. You cannot eliminate 80% of the carbon dioxide emissions by going after only half that much. All right.
I don't mean to interrupt you with the question, but how far along are they in instituting this cap and trade in Europe? Or is it in its infancy? Are they?
It is. It's about 3-4 years.
Or something, or what?
It's about 3-4 years in,
okay.
And they have a multi-stage process that they're going through. And so far, it's been a real problem for them, and I'll talk a little bit about this. Now, my second point has to do with the economy. Now, the EU has commissioned studies because obviously they're imposing all these changes on their economy. And so, of course, after the fact, they've studied what's going to happen. And their own studies show that this is going to have a very serious impact on their economy, particularly, obviously, heavy industry. In fact, there are certain industries out there where, for instance, it's going to be much cheaper when they implement cap and trade to actually make concrete in Africa and ship it than to actually make it near the... I mean, concrete is not a terribly complicated thing to make, but it is very carbon intensive. You have to heat the stuff up very carbon dioxide. You heat it up a lot, so you burn a lot of energy, it takes a lot of carbon dioxide. So of course, if you do it someplace where they don't have environmental regulation, and you aren't paying $40, $50, $80, $100 a ton, and they're projecting that the costs of carbon dioxide are going to skyrocket, it's just going to be a lot cheaper to do it somewhere else. And so industries, of course, have a very serious problem. Those that can't move are going to be facing, just in the next 10 years, a doubling of electricity costs. That's their own projection. And of course, consumers are going to bear the brunt of these costs because in Europe, they're encouraging a lot of the utilities to go out there and just raise your prices, pass it on to them, because of course you want to restrict people's consumption of electricity. And so, bottom line is it's going to harm industry, raise costs, and drive production offshore. It's not going to reduce emissions. Why? Because, well, they're going to make concrete somewhere else. They're going to start doing things elsewhere. It's just going to cause people to move to less environmentally friendly places. All right, and think about this for a second. I mean, it's the same logic that we see with oil. Think about it. In the United States, we can't drill for oil. It's going to hurt the economy or hurt the environment. And so let's do it where? Someplace where they don't care, right? Here in the United States, well, they do one well and then move it out so that you've got 2 acres or something where they're dedicated to drilling a well. Somewhere else, they're going to do 1,000 wells. What do they care? Same thing's going to happen with anything in industry. They're just going to drive it offshore, and instead of in the United States or in Europe, where they are, environmentally sensitive, they're just going to do someplace where people don't care. Now, they actually have a term for this, and it's called carbon leakage, which is just another way of saying you aren't actually reducing carbon dioxide all you're doing is displacing where it happens. And they themselves understand that this is the likeliest outcome. All right. So the takeaway is, it's not going to work. What it will do is deindustrialize the first world. What will happen, what they're projecting in Europe, and what will happen in the United States if they pass this is that industries will just see, my costs are too high here. We'll go somewhere else. They don't care about this in China. They don't care about this in India or Brazil or anywhere else. So we'll just go somewhere else. Now, this, I think, is a really key point. You know, it's not like everyone involved in this is a complete and utter idiot that doesn't know this. So why are they pushing this? And I think it's pretty simple. What you're seeing is the development of a political spoil system. And a great example of this is here in the United States. Now, we don't know exactly what's going to come out, but at least one of the cap and trade proposals, in fact, I believe the one that passed the House, they give away most of the carbon emission credits. All right? And the way in which they've managed to do this is they set up a formula that gives away a certain percentage based upon how carbon intensive your, say, electricity generation capacity is, and some of it just based upon how much electricity you generate. Now, this is a really fascinating thing, because you go, well, how different is that? Well, you can have a utility out there that, say, is 93% coal, very carbon intensive. And you can have another one that's, say, heavy in nuclear. Well, the one that's heavy in nuclear is going to be given carbon emission credits. And what are they going to do? Turn around and sell it to you.